Welcome to the April 22nd Social Circle Planning Commission. We do have a packed house. Thank you all for being here. Before we get started on the agenda, just a brief roll call. If you'll let the record show that Mr. Travis Parr and Mr. Curtis Mullins are not present, but all other members are. And we all had the opportunity, those of us that are here, to review the minutes from the previous meeting. Are there any changes, notes, comments to be made? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as published.
I make a motion to approve the
So we have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Motion passes unanimous. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before we get started on our public hearings tonight, we have two public hearings on the agenda, but before we begin, we do have some rules that we will play and ask for you to listen to them, and those are the ones we're going to follow.
Before we begin this evening, I want to just hit the highlights of the regulations that need to be considered during this meeting. Foremost, for the record to reflect any speakers who wish to respond for or against the application of any item on the agenda, each speaker must sign up to register their intent. If you do not register prior to the commencement of this meeting, you will not be called upon, and you will not be allowed to speak. Each item shall be handled in the order of the published agenda. However, upon motion of the commission, it is possible that the order of the agenda may be changed. Therefore, it is recommended all interested persons remain at the meeting in the event of a change in the order of the agenda. As each agenda item is brought forth, the city staff will present the application, the background of the property involved, and provide a recommendation. After the staff has presented the application, the applicant or applicant's agent will give his or her presentation of the item. The applicant's time is limited to a total of 10 minutes. The applicant may designate any remaining time for rebuttal to any opposition to the application. All registered speakers who wish to speak in favor of the application will then be heard and will also be limited to 10 minutes total, not each. Once the applicant has made his or her presentation to the board and the pro-applicant speakers have been heard, the chair will then call upon registered speakers who wish to speak against the application. The opposition shall likewise be limited to 10 minutes total, not each. After the public comments have been heard, the Planning Commission members will then discuss the request among themselves. Upon motion and second by the members of the commission, an action on the application may be taken to approve with conditions, approval with an alternative zoning district that is lesser than that which was advertised, or deny. These matters are sometimes hotly contested and can result in highly adversarial positions among the participants in attendance. This meeting is not the place for such discussions. Rather, this is a meeting to hear the facts and opinions as presented by all parties. Each public speaker will be called upon by the chair, and each speaker must address the commission. Any conversations between the speaker and other members of the audience not called upon by the chairman shall be deemed out of order. All speakers are expected to conduct themselves in an appropriate manner, and any involvement of personalities or the use of abusive or profane language will not be tolerated.
All right, thank you.
Before we begin this evening,
One more time, right? So the first item on the agenda is a rezoning 2025-06. It is for unaddressed property on Highway 11 known as parcel 0123032. Request to rezone from AG to light industrial to allow for industrial or technology park. Ashley, would you carry us through this application, please?
Absolutely. So this proposed rezone is for plus or minus 338 acres of this property from agricultural to light industrial, and it would be for the purpose of developing a technology park, and this rezone is also being done in conjunction with a special use, which we will hear later tonight. So as shown on the proposed site plan, which is Exhibit A in your packets, the data center campus would consist of 9 buildings, totaling approximately 2,567,040 square feet in all. 6 of those buildings are 252,840 square feet, and the remaining 3 are 350,000 square feet. This is along the I-20 portion of the property. The proposed site plan shows that it would maintain an undisturbed buffer surrounding the development to screen it from surrounding properties. Exhibit A also includes a proposed parkway-style entrance along Georgia Highway 11, extending to the Social Circle Road frontage of the property. The applicant has indicated that the access would be secured and for business purpose only. It would not be open for public use. In addition, the applicant states that their traffic impact study identified the need for a traffic signal at the Georgia Highway 11 curb cut, but that would be worked out with GDOT, since that is a state route. As the property currently sits, it's vacant. When this property was annexed in 2008 and 9, there was no future land use map designation adopted for this area within the city limits. However, the character area of nearby and adjacent properties within the city is the Gateway Interchange character area, which does include light industrial zoning as an appropriate zoning. In addition, the Northeast Georgia Regional Commission reviewed the development of regional impact, or the DRI, that was submitted as part of the application, and that is labeled as Exhibit B in your packets, and indicated that this site is identified as developing on the regional land use map. Exhibit B also provides the list of recommended uses or characteristics for developments with this developing label on the regional land use map. And while the proposal was originally submitted by Newton County as DRI number 4376 due to an error in annexation reporting, it was resubmitted by Social Circle as DRI number 4426 after the city determined that the site was within the boundaries of the city limits. However, if you'll look at Exhibit B, Newton County has taken the position that the property in question was never properly annexed into the city of Social Circle. The city has found that this property was never properly de-annexed in 2010, and the Georgia Department of Community Affairs agrees. Water and sewer services in this area are controlled by the Newton County Water and Sewer Authority, and that's dictated by our service delivery strategy with Newton County. Any project that gets developed within the city limits in Newton County, they get the first dibs on water and sewer. A community meeting was also held virtually on April 3rd. However, aside from the applicant, there weren't any other attendees at that community meeting. A couple things to pull out of the staff analysis section of the staff report. Under suitability and community need, the question number 2 is, does this proposed zoning district address a specific need in the county or city? This proposed rezone would address a specific need by increasing and diversifying the tax base and bringing job growth. Another thing I just want to point out in there under consistency, that this proposal appears to conform with the city's comprehensive plan for the Gateway Interchange area, which is what is intended for this area within the city, as well as Northeast Georgia Regional Commission's regional plan, and it also does fall under the industrial character area for Newton County's future land use map as well. Staff recommends approval of the request to rezone from ag to light industrial.
Thank you, Ashley. Are there any questions of staff at this time that the Planning Commission has? I do have one right this time, Ashley. You said the request is for approximately 338 acres. However, I think the overall parcel is 453. What about the remaining area? What would that be zoned?
So the remaining area would remain as an agricultural zoning. So this property would get subdivided after this rezone aspect. So any future development on those ag portions would have to come back before you guys. So if there was a commercial development or anything like that, they would have to come back before Planning Commission to get rezoned for whatever they want to develop that property as.
All right, thank you. I'm sure there'll be other questions that we have as staff, but at this time, I think let's go ahead and begin the public hearing, and we'll start with the applicant. If the applicant would come up to the podium and state your name for the record. As a reminder, the applicant gets a total of 10 minutes. You may save some time for rebuttal.
Good evening. I'm Julie Sellers. And joined tonight by Brad Caber, Adam Rashid, and our engineer Daniel Clasby with Kimley Horn. We are here tonight asking for your recommendation of approval for a rezoning and a use permit to develop a campus-style technology park. Now, although the applicant is based here in Georgia, they have extensive experience working with companies such as Digital Realty Trust, Edged Engineer, Google, Amazon Web Services, Meta, and others, and have developed data centers in both the United States and Canada. This is including the Stanton Springs project, which is just down the road. This expertise and the need for additional data centers is what led them to this site. I'm going to try to see. Here we go. Okay, this is the site plan that you have. As you can see, this slide shows the property that we are rezoning. It's about 331 acres. It's right along I-20, and it's in between exit 98, which is State Route 11, and Social Circle Road. The development will include 9 buildings and the related substations for power, and we do have a firm commitment from Georgia Power for this location already. I'm going to touch on the next slide to show something that the chairman indicated. This is a portion of a larger tax parcel, and as you can see, there is a new road that, as Ashley mentioned, would be access controlled so that it cannot be used for cut-through traffic. And there's a significant amount of property that is not included in this rezoning application that provides the separation between the Surrey Chase neighborhood and this development. This development is a $5 billion investment with a significant financial benefits to both the city and the county without impacting schools or traffic. The location on I-20 is the appropriate location for this type of use and this technology park. We have satisfied the criterias in the city's code, and we ask for your recommendation of approval, and I'll save my remaining time for rebuttal.
Okay, thank you. All right. Were there any questions of the applicant that the planning commission had? Okay, Ms. Sellers? Good.
In regards, on the slide before that one, you mentioned the amount of land that's not going to fall into your industrial zoning portion.
Yes, sir.
Are there any intentions of doing anything from a, I guess you'd call it a nature space, walking trails, anything like that, that would potentially be open to the public?
Not at this time. I can't speak to that. So the applicant has a contract to purchase the property that you see there in color. So the property owner that currently owns the property would be retaining that agricultural property. So any future use would come back before this board, whether that's, you know, some sort of a recreation type thing or some other kind of use.
Ms. Sellers,
Yes, sir.
thank you for clarifying that. The portion on the map there that's in the northeast corner of this property, the green,
Yes.
yeah, I had to do the same. The green area, what's the plan for that?
So the plan right now, you know, as you are likely familiar as planning commissioners, this is the concept plan. I do want to highlight, you know, Kimley Horn is our engineering company, so this has been in the works and has really been vetted. And so right now we believe that this is the placement of the buildings, so we do not have plans to develop that portion. The city's code has certain maximum development thresholds, and so we cannot overbuild, if you will, on the property. So we think it makes sense to orient the buildings closest to the interstate, and we are right at. I think we're right at 32% of impervious surface on our current site plan. The maximum is 40. So, you know, I would not, it's not going to significantly change.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Sellers.
Great, thank you.
All right, at this time, we do have a couple of people signed up. Ms. Sellers, the applicant, you signed up. And we have a Daniel, I'm sorry, is this Clousby?
Yes.
would you, you're going to represent the applicant as well, okay?
I think the applicant's team just signed up, so I don't know that we need to add anything at this time, just
Got
in
it.
the interest of time.
Check, thank you. Okay, at this time, we will move to those who would like to speak in opposition. I'm going to go in order of those who signed in. There's 9 people who would like to speak in opposition. As a reminder, it's a total of 10 minutes, not 10 minutes each. So at this time, I'm going to call Neil Maynard. Mr. Maynard, for the record, if you'll state your name and address.
Neil Maynard, 1414 Highway 11, Social Circle, Georgia. I'm more opposed to it due to the infrastructure not being able to handle with water and power possibility, the additional traffic. When I go to work in the evenings, sometimes it takes me 3 to 5 minutes to get out of my driveway to go to Covington to I-20. And when they did the bypass on Social Circle, I was against that also because they wanted to come into Newton County. And this has affected me more so in Newton County. And I live in Newton County. And I just don't think the center is going to benefit the county residents that well.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you. All right, the next speaker is, looks like Sam Clemens, and I'm sorry if I didn't bring my glasses, so I apologize for mispronouncing someone's name. Mr. Clemens? Dang, this keeps resetting. Can you? Okay. Thanks.
My name is John Clemens.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's
Mr.
okay.
Clemens.
And I didn't know that I had signed up, but now that I'm up here, I'm going to speak. I don't understand how the city of Social Circle can annex a piece of property that belongs to Newton County. Don't understand that. I'm against the data center again because we have 4 other ones already hitting this whole area. We have Facebook already. There's 2 or 3 others that are in Newton County. And as the other gentleman just said, where is the infrastructure and what's going to support all this? And so I have concerns that I live basically right across the I-20 from there, come through on a regular basis. And I do understand that the traffic is an issue already there. There's a lot of traffic on Highway 11. So basically, I'm not going to take any more time other than to say that I'm totally against this. And another biggest concern is those people that live there in Surrey Chase. I'm sure they don't like it either, as well as River Cove. But those are my big concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have Rick Henderson.
My name's Rick Henderson. I live on 170 Park Place Trail in Town Park. And basically, I've been through this before in Rockdale County, in Newton County, and now in Walton County. You know, it just, it's getting worse and worse. But the biggest thing, I don't mind advancement. I don't mind the addition of, as long as it's addition of to the community itself, the services, the people, the residents, the ones that pay the taxes, the ones that wanted to come here for this type of living that we have. I just don't see a technology park. You got technology park all up I-20. Why choose to build one? That's been basically what I have against it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. David Norton.
Good evening, Dave Norton. I live in Newbern, one of your neighbors just across the interstate over there. I would like to know why we are here, because the city of Social Circle received a cease and refrain from further efforts to rezone property from the Newton County Attorney's Office yesterday. So you may be wasting your time. This property will be tied up in court for who knows how long. So with that said, there's so many different areas we could talk about. So first one I'm going to speak on is the water. It comes from Newton County Water Authority. And last fall, I don't know if City of Social Circle was invited. There was called One Water Team meeting. And it was City of Covington Water and Newton County Water and what they were planning for the future. They planned on Newton County growing by 60,000 people in the next 25 years. They were planning their water for that. Not one mention was made of a data center. So, and if we go to all these data centers, there's several more other than this. When we have a major drought, they're not going to ask the data centers to cut back on their water use. They're going to ask you to cut back on your water use. And another thing that I will speak on is Social Circle's been known as a friendly town, a neighborly town. What you're attempting to do to Newton County here is not neighborly at all. We are neighbors. We're all neighbors. We all live here. It's not friendly. It's just, it makes me not want to come to Social Circle if you were to do this to us. You can clearly see there was no one else speaking in favor other than an applicant. Where are your citizens that are speaking in favor? Where's your pastors? Where's your school teachers speaking in favor of this? Where are they? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have Tom Butcher.
I live at Skyline, and when I came here a number of years ago, I had bought some property out in Stanton Springs. I thought eventually I'd move from Stone Mountain to Lithonia to Conyers out by the monastery, and then out here. And I followed the growth all the way. And I thought, well, I'll live with my 43 acres out by Stanton Springs on Dennis Creek. It borders a Burrs Plantation. And eventually I started getting pressure to sell. And it was to Facebook. And it was Shane Shore, good guy, and good property values. But it was interesting. I said, I'm not going to do it. And they said, well, I removed it, moved it. And finally one guy told me, the guy he was with Technology Atlanta, he said, young man, I want to show you something. He walked in the room, there was 20 things on the wall. I said, what's that? And he said, these are all the things we look for growth. This was Technology Atlanta. He said, it's interstate highway, it's railroads, it's deep-water port in Savannah. And he said a fiber optic cable that goes from, I think, Washington, D.C. all the way to Miami, a big issue. And they talked about colleges. He talked about available land. He talked about climate. People don't want to live in Arizona and they don't want to live in Michigan. And he said, guess what place, only place in the country that has all 20 of these? I said, I don't know. He said, here, from Covington to Augusta to Athens. It's going to be the prime development place in the southeast United States. And I didn't know at the time, but it proved to be right. I finally got more pressure, and one day they said, if you don't sell your 43 acres, we'll get it anyway. That's what he means. You're not going to stop this development here. And so I said, I guess I'm a loser here, and I sold it. And it was my dream place. The creek's not there anymore. It's just an underground pipe that goes through that place. And I think all of us people here feel the same way. We moved out here for a reason. We don't want the hassle of Atlanta. We don't want the hassle around the rest of the world. This is a private place. And all my friends who go to church and live out here, they're here for the same reason. And now they're saying, well, money, politics. It's not because the people want it. Nobody wants it. It's because it means money, it means more taxes, it means more power, more whatever. And that's just my basic feeling. And so thank you for whatever you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
3 minutes and 13 seconds remaining.
I have Carol Allen. Okay. Jim Allen. Okay. Valerie Walhart.
Hey, I'm Valerie Wilhart. I live at 429 East Hightower. I just have a few questions about the project, and some of these may have been answered in the packet, but I did not have the entire packet. I was under the impression the city does not allow split zoning, and if they normally do not, I would like to know why they are considering that now. I also would like to know what tax abatements have been promised to the end users, who I'm assuming we're not allowed to know, and what portions of this project will be a burden to the taxpayers of the area. I'd like to know what timeline is planned for this project, how long until construction begins, until it's complete, and what different phases can we expect. And just point out that data centers are allowed, use immense amount of water and electricity, and have been a suspect for increased rates of cancer in nearby residents. It looks like there's a lot of citizens against this, and just want to remind you guys that the voices of the existing citizens have value too, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
2 minutes, 3 seconds.
And we have John Miller.
John Miller, 20 Lakeview Avenue. Prior to Valerie, I think I'm the only other Social Circle resident that's been able to talk, but I know there's several others here. Real quick though, if there was any doubt that our leadership is hell-bent to industrialize our area, I think this is pretty clear that they are, given how aggressively they've gone to annex this property, given there's no taxes or anything like that. But that's a whole nother story. The issue that I have with this, I understand the reasons why they want it. My biggest concern is technology moves fast. Okay, it changes very, very rapidly. 10 years from now, 15 years from now, technology will probably advance to a point where perhaps data centers aren't the answer anymore. Perhaps now you can fit all of that information on the size of this. Then what happens with all of these buildings? Go to Detroit, go to Michigan, go to the auto belt of the world and see all the rusted buildings that nobody can do anything with. And as technology people, you know this is true.
Mr. Miller, can you address the comments to us, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So that is my biggest concern, is what happens when these are no longer viable for the use that they're intended. What are the other options for these buildings? Because 10, 15 years ago, there were no data centers. Now they're going everywhere. And just as fast as they came, they're going to go. So the citizens, I think overwhelmingly are against it. If we are going to be forced to have it, it'd be really nice for it to be completely hidden from view. That would be one thing that if we're going to be forced with it, I don't want to see it, I don't want to hear it. So like the buildings by the street, if there's any ability to put some stipulations in to make sure those get moved back, we would certainly enjoy your assistance with that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thank you for all those who signed up to speak in favor and against. At this time, the applicant does have 7 minutes and 40 seconds of rebuttal. Ms. Sellers.
I think we're going to tag team this with Brad can answer some of the more specifics. I did want to, obviously we're here, we are happy to answer any of the questions that the commission has. My understanding is it would be helpful for you all to hear us answer maybe some of the questions that the residents had. So I'll address a few and then let Brad address some. As it relates, there was a question regarding split zoning. The property would be subdivided, so the parcel would not have split zoning upon approval of this. Thinking about one of the things that I heard a few times is the traffic comments and concern about traffic on Highway 11. So when you think about land use and you look at the data center use, one of the benefits of this use is you are creating a lot of value without a lot of traffic. So we're not having the traffic that would be a typical commercial use or a residential neighborhood that would really generate a lot of traffic. There's very little traffic. It's, after the construction is completed, there are some employees, but about 200 for this size is not a significant amount of traffic, so we would not be adversely affecting that. I'm gonna let Brad touch on water and sewer, and I'm gonna make sure that I go through my notes and we might address some other things as well.
Yes, I'm Brad Kaber. Thank you to the commission for hearing us tonight once again. To address the water concern, yes, the data centers have a number of different means by which they will be cooled, and one of those options generally is a water-cooled evaporative cooling system, which does have in on a hot summer day, relatively high water demand. So that's not lost on us. We understand that that's a concern from the community. We have been in contact with Mike Hopkins for many months on that issue. So the request is being asked to Newton County Water and Sewerage Authority. Is there water available to serve this campus? To the extent water is available without causing a disservice to the existing customers, that water obviously the district is happy to sell that water to this property. To the extent they can't service the site, it just simply can't be used, and the user has to find a different means by which to engineer their cooling systems. It's not a requirement that it has to just consume huge amounts of water. It's simply based on what is available from the Water and Sewerage Authority. So I'm happy to answer more questions specifically about water demand, but there has been a detailed water ramp schedule with real engineering behind it sent to the district, and that's being reviewed, and discussions are ongoing regarding water usage.
4 minutes, 30 seconds.
And then I'll just hit on visibility real quick, unless you wanted to save that for your other. So the scale of this site, I think we just want to make sure is clear. From one end to the other is almost 10,000 feet. So it's almost 2 miles in the I-20 frontage. Where it narrows up, where our parkway is, that's over 7,000 feet. The closest residential property to any of these buildings you see on here is over 840 feet. The topography on the site and the existing vegetation, no one in the Surrey Chase neighborhood will see these buildings or hear them. They are quiet in operation. They don't make pollution. There's nothing being manufactured in the building. There's no smokestacks, and there's no noise. All you have to do is drive to Sand Springs and see one of these data center buildings for yourself to understand how they operate. The traffic is minimal. As Julie said, 200 employees. There isn't a lower traffic impact use in the industrial category as far as how GDOT looks at industrial usage than a data center. Let's see. Anything else you wanted to address specifically? I think that's all I had in direct response to the opposition. Oh, and I mentioned that you can't see it. The buffers there, I think maybe we'll talk more about just the buffers around the property. But again, the scale there, we're 140 feet from the interstate. So it's truly very limited visibility. But Scott, I'll stop the time for us there in our response.
Well, I think there's still some time for rebuttal. It may be good if you took notes from the questions you had that you heard from the public, if you want to address those. Otherwise, I'll ask those same questions. Timeline.
Yeah, so this would be a 5-year build out. We anticipate starting in 2028.
So start in 2028, wrap up in 2031? Is that where we're looking?
No, I mean start to finish 5 years, starting in 28, ending in 2033.
Okay. Tax abatements.
We have not and will not apply for tax abatements. We however, cannot speak for the end user, what they may seek from for tax abatements.
So for this case, are you guys just getting the entitlements, getting the zoning in place, and then flipping it to the end user, or are you going to actually build and own the buildings until they're built and then sell them? Fee simple.
Yes. No. We would own the real estate, develop the land, have a tenant in the buildings.
Okay, and then collect rent from that tenant.
Yes.
Okay, so you'd be the responsible party for maintaining that property perpetually.
Well, for at least some period of time.
Until you sell
yes,
it.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions of the applicant before we close the public hearing? I do have quite a few. I think you have some time remaining. Is that correct?
2 minutes, 45 seconds.
If you want to wrap anything up, if not, we'll close the public hearing. And if you want to stay there, I've got some questions for you.
I think in the interest of time, that makes sense.
Okay, so at this time, we'll close the public hearing on the zoning request. And we've kind of blurred the lines between zoning and the project. And that's quite all right, because this is a big project. So the zoning is changing it from AG to light industrial for just 338 roughly acres of the 453. So is the zoning appropriate is what we have to ask. Not talking about the data center application, just is the zoning appropriate? I've been on the commission for far too long. I remember back in 2008 and 9 when this property was attempted to annex, and I'm going to ask, I've asked our city attorney to be here because I want to ask him a pointed question about, there is some concern, I have some concern about the validity of this application for us to be able to hear and consider it tonight because of the uncertainty of, is it in the city limits or is it not? And I say that because given the past history, the last, this property has, and some of you in the audience may know this, and please remain quiet because this is how we do business up here. But previous application failed. Another application came about a year and a half later, and the city thought we did everything correctly. At that time, the city attorney at the time had missed a few parcels and created an island. And zoning procedures law says you cannot create an island when annexation. So, Jay, if you'll walk us through how you believe the city legally has the authority to hear this request tonight, I would appreciate it.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, and it is a storied history. As you stated, it came before council. It was brought into the city. It was found that was faulty through a lawsuit. It came back before council in 2008, 2009, 2010, and it was annexed into the city. There was no objection by Newton County at that time. It was brought into the city properly. It was de-annexed improperly. We got a letter from the property owners, which is not Ms. Sellers or the applicants here, but the property owners, a few months ago, sort of saying that, hey, we got brought into the city. When you get, as you know, when you get brought into the city, you have rights into that city. So they were bringing up those rights. Our office did an investigation along with the city and found that annexation in 2008, 2009 was proper. The de-annexation was improper. So we believe, and the property owner believes, that it's in the city. And so you have every right to hear it. As we are sitting here, there has been a letter sent objecting to that from Newton County. There has been no lawsuit or court order placing that annexation aside. So I believe, and we believe, that the city is allowed to hear this rezoning as we sit here today.
Okay, thank you. As a recommending body, should this body be able to make a recommendation to move forward? And if between now and the city council meeting a lawsuit or injunction were to be filed, it essentially stops the proceedings until a court can remedy the discrepancy. Is that
That's correct? If a court order is entered and an injunction is entered, the city can no longer do anything until that is resolved. There is not that in place now, so we recommend that this council or this commission goes forward as their normal business of the rezoning until that is in place.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that explanation.
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions of the commission, of the applicants, to whether or not the zoning is appropriate to change from AG to light industrial? We will have another public hearing on the request for the data center, but this is about the zoning. The change of the character area and the zoning. Right now, there's not a character area or a future land use designation. Is that correct, Ashley?
So that's correct. As you guys know, we're also working on updating our comp plan, so this will be included in that comprehensive plan update. But as stated in the staff report, this area has always been intended as our gateway interchange area. That's the closest adjacent property with a future land use map designation. It is designated for industrial uses according to Newton County's future land use map and in the Northeast Georgia Regional Commission's regional planning map as well.
So Ashley, can you, is it safe to say that the reason it does not have a future land use designation in the city currently is because the city, when they adopted the future land use map, did not know this was in the city?
That would be correct.
And the zoning that's in place on it now, is that a city zoning or is that a Newton County zoning?
That is the zoning that was in place when the original annexation took place. So,
In 2009? Okay.
so it was brought into the city as an agricultural zoning.
Okay. All right. Applicants, thank you. I don't think there's any other questions for you at this time. I think the questions are going to be amongst us.
Thank you.
So, commission members, I'm looking at you. I've got a lot of heartburn about this because of I'm leaning on our city attorney that says, yes, we can do this. But I've got still that clouded mystery around it. We didn't know it was in the city for the last 15 years. So, that's unique and that's challenging. I look at the zoning. Is the zoning appropriate? Well, I look at it as, yeah, for a property of butts I-20, a commercial or an industrial zoning would be appropriate. I remember, this doesn't really matter much now, but in 2009, it was a mixed-use business park, and we had visions and goals of having a commercial mixed-use park that had commercial and industrial uses in it. I don't think the industrial zoning along I-20 is a bad thing. Looking at it from a land use standpoint, I think it's better than potentially residential because then you're going to be adding residents against the interstate, which is not ideal. But I ask all of you to think about this is, how do you feel about it? Are you satisfied and clear that we can take this action tonight on zoning? And if so, what's your thoughts on the request to rezone to light industrial?
I really didn't know it was in.
Can you turn my phone off?
To be honest, I really didn't know that it was annexed in, and I was on the committee then.
Yep.
So, when you go so far out, I don't even think it's a mile out. It have a sign that say Newton County. So it skips from there, from that sign, and then it picks, Social Circle picks up. I didn't realize that.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, and that's, you're right. We're the two that are long in the tooth and been here, and remember that, yeah. Adolphus, you have any thoughts on the zoning request?
It meet the qualifications to be rezoned, but as far as the data center,
Well, let's don't confuse the
Yeah, I mean-
two, but, is the zoning,
it-
is the light industrial zoning appropriate?
it meets the qualifications for it,
Yeah.
regardless of what I tell, that's what's,
Yeah. Mr. Gardner?
Yeah, I mean, I know there's
Microphone.
There's a lot of questions about it. I was able to do a little bit of research and found some information based on what the attorney said. And off the information we know now, the rezoning fits the area. If everything else is correct in the information we have.
Okay.
Based on the usage maps and also leaning towards, Newton County's map, because it does show that area. So it's not really going out of the norm.
when you say Newton County's map, because I know I looked at Newton County zoning map, and Newton County shows this parcel as in Newton County on their zoning and their future land use. When you say on their map, can you elaborate for me?
Well, on their land use map, and yes, the land is in their county, so, I mean, they do have some right to taxation on that property, just like Walton County does.
So you're talking about the Q Public parcel data
Yes,
map? Okay,
yes.
gotcha, okay. All right, Ms. Brown?
I'm sorry.
You can.
I always assume that, like you say, when you get right past where you turn it off to get on the highway to go to the bypass, to go that way, I always thought that all those houses were Newton County because the kids came to school here, but they said they lived in Newton County, but they were in our school, and that was back in the 80s.
Yes, ma'am.
So I just automatically assumed that was Newton County's land. I don't know. I didn't think it belonged to us. And the people that was out there were paying their taxes and stuff in Newton County. But like I say, they attended school here in Social Circle with us. So I didn't know any different.
Yes, ma'am, from South Cherokee where the bypass comes in, that area south to I-20, yes, ma'am, is all Newton. Still is, and the only area that we're concerned with is this area just north of the interstate, of the exit ramp, being in the city or not in the city. And our attorney has said that he's advised us that, yes, it is in the city. Now, the big question is, if this were an annexation request and, come through cleanly where it's an annexation and zoning request, that would make a lot more sense and be more comfortable for me saying, yep, okay, it's a clean break. We're asking to be brought into the city. But in this case, our legal team is saying it's been in the city since 2009, not been taxed in the city, not been zoned in the city. Thankfully, it doesn't appear that there's been any residents on there since Ms. Penland's house burned down. So there hasn't been any voting rights violations. But I could be wrong, that it could have been a house and could be a resident somewhere tucked back that I'm not aware of. But it's one of those that we have to decide, all right, based on our legal representation, it's in the city. Is the zoning appropriate? And Mr. Gaither, like you said, it meets those criteria based on our ordinance. The zoning, would that be appropriate for light industrial? So, if there's no other discussion, the chair will entertain a motion if there's no other. But again, I'm, like I stated, I'm a little confused and have to rely on the word from our attorney. And if Newton County does file a lawsuit or does file an injunction between now and the city council meeting, then the city council can't move forward until that's identified and clarified by a judge. And it may very well end up being that it has to come back through the annexation zoning process again at a later time. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So, all that to say, what's this commission's wish to recommend to the mayor and council? We can recommend to approve as requested. We can recommend with a different zoning classification. We can recommend denial. And we can table it, right, to a later date? I can't remember if our ordinance says that.
You can table to a date certain. If you guys don't need any more information, I wouldn't recommend tabling it. I would recommend going ahead and offering a recommendation. How many times can you say recommend in 30 seconds?
I recommend we don't count.
Yeah. So that, again, but that is an option on the table.
No matter what smoke is going on around it.
Microphone, please.
No matter what the cloud is around it, the information we have, I make a motion to approve it, to recommend to approve.
All right, we have a recommendation to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
And we have a second. Any other discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How much of that property is in the social circle? The whole amount?
The claim is, yes, ma'am, that all 453 acres is in the city limits.
So when we get to this Newton County line out there, we in Newton County, until we get out there to this part, we're in social circle.
Yes,
It's still Newton County. I want to make that clear. It is still Newton County, but it is also within the city limits of Social Circle. Just like the middle of town is Walton County, but it's still the city limits of Social Circle.
And just if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
The city already has properties within Newton County. It's a dual county city. It's already got ones in Walton and Newton County. We're just claiming or saying that this is in the city.
Can we please keep the chatter to a minimum in order for us to pick up the conversation between the commission and the attorney, please? Thank you.
Yeah, and that's been the big question. And I think that's the question in a lot of people's minds is the jurisdictional authority. So as the city attorney was explaining, the city of Social Circle is in primarily Walton County, but we also have a portion in Newton County. So it overlaps both counties. And in this situation, Newton County is the underlying county and district, and Social Circle has annexed into that county.
And I want to clarify.
Yes, please.
Taking this property out of consideration, Social Circle is already in Newton County. Yeah.
Thank you. And that would be on the east side towards 278. All right, so we have a motion to recommend the mayor and council to approve the rezoning from AG to M1 for light industrial, sorry, M1, L1, or LI, for 338 acres, and there's a second. Seeing there's no other discussion, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. And all those opposed? All right, motion passed 3-2. The next item on the agenda is a special use permit request to construct a data center on the same property at tax parcel 0123032 on now property or recommended property light industrial. So Ashley, would you like to carry us through that?
Sure thing. So, the majority of the staff report is very much the same because the concept plan hasn't changed from one case to the other, basically. Just a couple things I wanted to point out in the staff report. Sorry, my packet got all messed up here. In the staff analysis, I just wanted to point out something that we look at with special uses. We look at the compatibility. And one of the questions we have to answer as staff is can the specific use standards for the special use, if any, as provided in Article 3 use standards be achieved? The specific use standards for a data center are covered under Section 3.4.6.a. This section outlines a data center as being a facility or a portion of a facility used for housing, network, computer systems, and telecommunication equipment used for remote storage, processing, and distribution of data. The proposed development / concept appears to fall within the parameters outlined within the UDC.
Okay, so as before, we'll invite the applicant up to come speak about the request for a special use permit to construct a data center.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Julie Sellers, 1776 Peachtree Street, Atlanta, Georgia, here on behalf of the applicant. We are here asking for your recommendation of approval for the special use of the property for a data center, and we will go ahead and reserve the remaining time for rebuttal.
Okay, great, thank you. So let the record show that the applicant and applicant's party has signed up for speak in favor, and we'll go right into those who'd like to speak in opposition of the request for a special use permit. Neil Maynard. Not again, okay. John Clemens? Are you timing or?
Again, I just want to emphasize that I'm against this. And another issue that came to my mind as I was sitting there rather, is the idea of the taxes and things that supposedly will come from these data centers. I live in Newton County. We have a data center right across the interstate from you all. We were all told that our house and all of our taxes would go down. My taxes have not gone down 1 year since that. They're still going up. So any idea that this is going to be something that's going to help people with taxes, I'm sorry, it's not true. It's a lie. It ain't gonna happen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Rick Henderson?
Still opposed to it, if nothing else, because there's more confusion being thrown into it because we don't know what if and so much of what Newton County does or what Walton County's doing or what Social Circle going to do. So my point is when they get to this position, I still oppose it, and I think that everyone should oppose it until they get these issues straightened out. So appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. David Norton?
Dave Norton of Newbern. I've been going to Newton County Board of Commissioners meetings for a few years now. Most of them know me fairly well. Some may not like me. I don't care. I have quite a few friends. I run the Save East Newton page, if you haven't seen it on Facebook. I've got about 900 friends. Well, in order to protect my fellow Newton County citizens, some may live here in Social Circle, I will urge my Board of Commissioners to file a lawsuit to protect our interest in this property. And just the other day, I went to my first City of Port. This is my first Social Circle meeting. I went to my first City of Porterdale meeting, 2 of them last week. Very similar project, data center, down at Brown Bridge Road, the old Oaks Golf Course. I asked them about the traffic, and they said the same thing you've heard, very minimal traffic, not much employees. But construction was a whole nother story. They said a 6 to 8 year term on that one. At peak, there would be 600 to 700 people working on the data centers. So you're asking for a lot of traffic for, she said, 5 years, I believe. That's a lot of traffic, and a lot can happen in 5 years. Just need to be aware of that. The gentleman mentioned earlier about the industrialization of the area. Ask yourself, do you want to be Alpharetta or do you want to be Fulton Industrial Boulevard? Your little well up there, that pretty little thing I've been seeing out there in the middle of the road since as far back as I can remember as a kid, you're going to have to put a smokestack on top of it to keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Butcher?
I'm fine.
Thanks. Carol Allen? Okay. Jim Allen? Okay. Mike Bennett?
How you doing? My name is Mike Bennett. I live at 1374 Highway 11, roughly about a mile from the entrance of the future site. My biggest concerns is the infrastructure. The gentleman stated earlier that the Newton County is planning and looking at it. I can tell you right now the water line that I am on would be the same water line that they're going to be on. It also supplies Baxter. Whenever they have heavy production, when I go to take a shower, you can barely get water. Newton County says that's fine. I have less than 20 pounds of water pressure sometimes. Newton County's not ready for it. I don't think with all the growth that has happened in that area that it should be allowed to go through. That's all
Okay.
I got.
Thank you, sir. John Miller?
I've already stated my concern about the data center, but I am concerned about the water as well. If Newton County doesn't have enough water, and they then approach Social Circle to provide water, is that something that we could be looking at later on down the road? And if so, is that a burden that we want to take on? Because there's not just this data center, but the property across the street is also being considered for a large facility as well at some point in the future. And we have several others as well. So we've got to think long-term strategically. If we do want this, if this is what we're going to do, we need to get serious about putting in some serious infrastructure, water, power, gas, all of it, if this is the direction we're going to go. And I think we're already decades behind the 8 ball if that's the direction that we're going.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. All right, there's no other speakers against. Applicant, you do have time for rebuttal? Okay.
Looking at the property, and we are talking about the use of the property, but I would suggest that looking at kind of being strategic, looking at the long term, this is the right site for this type of use. You've got a significant amount of the property that's right along a highway. This is not in the middle of a town. We are not directly next to the Surrey Chase residence. It is really an appropriate area for this type of use. I wanted to go ahead and, let's see. Just touch briefly on the tax benefit. I'm going to give my disclaimer. These are made on assumptions based on the 2024 numbers, but I do think that this is significant to think about. And when you look at zoning, which the zoning recommendation has already been used, but we typically look at a reasonable economic use of the property. Using this property for the technology park, and we have come up with some calculations, 84 million in taxes, and as you can see the breakdown, the county benefits from that as well as the city benefiting from those property and personal, the real property and personal property taxes. And I want to touch on the franchise fee. The franchise fee is a franchise fee that is related to the power. That is only accessible if this property is located within city limits. So if this property was deemed to be located in unincorporated Newton County, that $5 to $20 million a year does not get paid. So that is just money that the user pays to the power company, and the power company keeps that money. So I do think that the numbers are significant. It is important when you are looking at the reasonable economic use of property, and I did want to just highlight these, again, making assumptions, no guarantees here, but I did want to provide to make sure that the commission as well as the public understood this isn't a county or a city who benefits. This is certainly a benefit for both. Let me just look. I wanted to touch on a couple of other things. I think we have talked about and touched on it, and we didn't have a lot of folks speak, but we did have the drawings created. So I did want to, this is a developer, like I said, very sophisticated with a lot of expertise and really has not come in sort of half-baked. This is something that's really been explored. And so one of the things that I was anticipating is that we may have folks that live in Surrey Chase that would have concerns about, am I going to be able to see this? Am I going to be able to hear this? So we asked our engineers to look at different places, look at the topography of how the property lays to really be able to get a sense so that we could provide some data and some real information to people who might be concerned residents to show that this is close to the interstate. This is not something that you are going to be able to see from your backyard. I recognize I'm standing up here selling change. I am asking you all to make a recommendation of approval, but what I want you to know is that we really did dig into this and look at this. Some of the questions I was anticipating weren't asked, but I did want to at least go ahead and offer it up. Hopefully that provides some information to the residents as well as you as a council, commission. Happy to answer specific questions. This application is consistent and compatible with both the city's plans that are on file as well as the county. The county's comp plan designates this as industrial property. So we are consistent, and we're gonna let the lawyers sort through, is the dirt in the county unincorporated or is it in the city? But from a use standpoint and a special use, we would certainly ask for your recommendation of approval for the data center use and let the other issues be sorted out by other folks.
Yeah.
Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Sellers, and I appreciate you going through and having Kimley-Horn do these site distance renderings. And yeah, they look nice, and it appears that those residents to the north on Surrey Chase wouldn't be impacted by the visibility of these buildings until the current owner of the property decides to do something with that northwest corner of his property, or until you as the purchaser of the subject property do something with that northeast corner. So those are some of the things that right now as proposed, you're right, it's just a concept plan, because until you get into the engineering of it, you guys have several streams so that transverse through the property with buildings on them. So that's 404 permitting, that's EPD permitting. Building sites may change. You know, we do have a little bit of a vein of granite that runs through here, so you may hit some rock and say, it's not worth us blasting, we'll move it up. I do have more of my questions related to the special use permit than were the zoning. Do you have a written letter of commitment from Newton County Water and Sewer Authority to provide water to the site?
I don't know that we have a written letter of commitment, but I know, I'm going to let Brad address it. I know there have been.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a letter saying that they would service this site, but not for the amount of water requested. That's still in review.
All right, what is the amount of water requested?
Can we please keep the comments
The
to a
letter
minimum?
was included in the DRI application, I believe, but the amount of water at peak flow, and this would be only a couple days a year that would see this in terms of a daily volume, is about 2.6 million gallons a day. Annually, it's much. You would have about maybe 10 of those days for a whole year.
Okay.
Something like that.
And Brad, thank you for stepping up. Earlier, you talked about there's other methods of cooling that could be employed with the design.
Correct.
Would it not be advantageous to go ahead and plan for that, knowing that we have such a limited resource of water, to go ahead and plan for your cooling systems in your buildings to be something other than essentially a swamp cooler? And sorry, John, if I said that wrong.
Yeah, that certainly will be the plan if the Water and Sewer Authority tells us there is no water. But the ask is from the user is for water. It's either that or you cool through electricity, which is just a different resource you're using, and it's also a limited resource. So they're looking to balance the utility usage in the most efficient way they can. So they of course will, use the electric air-cooled system to the extent water is not available. They have no choice.
You're obviously much more well-versed in data center design and layout than I am, but at some point I know there was discussion of closed system glycol cooling. Is that a possibility, or am I just
Yeah,
wishful thinking?
there's a number of different systems that would, honestly, I'm not that engineer that does that either, and it would be reviewed. I mean, the answer is going to be just straight from Newton County Water and Sewer Authority. We have this available, or we don't, or there's more available for an upgrade at your expense that you'd pay for. In no event are we taking water that exists in the system now and it's not going to the customers.
And my concern is protecting that valuable resource for residential use moving forward, because as the gentleman said, when we get in times of drought, the request is on the residents to cut back on water usage, not on the industries. And if that's something that you can go ahead and plan and prepare for and build for, maybe we don't have requests but once or twice a year to conserve water, whereas if there was 2.6 million gallons of water being used at a data center, we might get more requests to do that.
Right. No, it very well could be the case that it ends up being an entirely air-cooled campus, and we're prepared for that.
Okay.
It's just, we just haven't got to that point with the water.
But the trade-offs with that is you get more noise, right? Typically.
Maybe slightly, yeah.
Okay. So it's all in measuring the externalities and seeing which ones are worse than the others.
Right.
Okay.
That's right. And just to make one more point, Stanton Springs has a gray water system, which we're in discussions about bringing that to this campus, so we wouldn't be using potable water. We may be using some of that, but the idea is that we're mostly trying to use water that's otherwise having to go to a sewer treatment plant. So
gray water.
That could be, gray water. So the district may be able to sell us water that they otherwise are just treating and have no other use for. So we're hoping to find a good compromise with the sewer authority.
And do you have a written letter of commitment from Georgia Power to provide electricity to the site?
Yes.
And how long is that commitment good for?
I don't know the answer to that. It's for a number of, months as we work through this process.
Because obviously you're on customer choice. Being such a large facility, you're going to be over that KVA requirement. So Georgia Power would be your choice provider, but you don't know how long that commitment's for.
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Now there's certainly a timetable to it. Contracts have to be signed in a certain amount of time, so there's a time element to this certainly.
Okay. I've looked at the site plan, and I understand Ashley has shared some of my comments about that, and I'd like to talk about a few of those. You talk about visibility. The two buildings that are on the southwest corner of the site are right there at the exit of Interstate 20. That's the gateway into Newton County / Social Circle. Yes, we've all driven down I-20 and seen Meta. It sits far off the interstate, but you can see it plain as day. I don't think I can tell you from my perspective, that's not an ideal welcome sign to Social Circle or Newton County, is to have two large concrete tilt wall buildings that are data centers. Would you be open to eliminating those two at that location? In addition to that, you also save a stream and a 404 permit and EPD and rubber stamp and all that.
Yeah, we would not be very interested in eliminating them. We would be happy to move them to a better location, so it's less visible from the road. In fact, I think we've already recognized that we're better off not impacting that stream anyways, and kind of reconfiguring how we connect the access for those two buildings to the parkway. So I think it would be more in line with how the other buildings are as far as the setback off the I-20 corridor, and it would be not visible from Highway 11. If it's on the other side of the stream, it'd be hundreds of feet away. So we would be certainly accommodating to moving them, but to deleting them.
Switching from perpendicular to 11 to parallel with 11, just east of that stream?
Yeah. Yes. However it would fit there, maybe, not sure the orientation, but I think you're right. I think if you rotated it and took it to the side of the stream, it'd fit fine.
Okay.
And
Yes,
Scott,
ma'am.
if I can just, after after we did hear that that was one of the questions you had, they have started looking into it. We can't make a specific commitment, but that seems like it's a viable option to move it farther away from 11.
Okay.
So.
The overall site, a little over 2 million square feet. Some of the things I looked at is looked at the density. At 2 million square foot total gross floor area, a maximum parking of 35 spaces per building, a minimum of 200-foot vegetative buffer between any portion of a building and the property line. Said buffer shall provide an opaque visual screen from adjacent streets, including I-20. I know doing some measurement, your closest building is about 100 feet from the right-of-way of I-20. Again, drawn from my experience driving down I-20 eastbound, looking south and seeing a smattering of pine trees between the interstate and buildings, you see the building. You see every bit of meadow. And the insatiable amount of light that it gives off at all hours of the day. You know, this used to be an area where you could go out at night and see the stars, and that's quickly fading. And that's quite a change of our character due to growth and development. And with that said, get into the weeds here with wall packs and exterior lighting mounted on buildings shall only be placed above service entrance, shall be full cutoff fixtures, down lighting so as not to cast light or glare towards property lines or streets, and shall not be used for general site lighting. Again, these are centers that are not open to the public. They're not commercial. You've got roughly 25 employees per building at various shifts, so you don't need a lot of lighting. Parking lot lights no taller than 20 foot. Full cutoff fixtures as well, shall not cast light or glare towards property lines. And site lighting photometric plan shall be completed and provide no more than 7-foot candles at the base of the light. 7-foot candles is quite a bit, especially when you're using a 5,000 Kelvin light. And then my last one was the power substations, the two that you're proposing, to be screened from view from all sides facing property lines or adjacent streets with a dense evergreen hedge and provide an opaque visual buffer, 12-foot high at the time of planning. And then the last request, that if this is something that our commission were to recommend or our city council to approve, is that 2,800 linear foot retaining wall facing I-20. It shouldn't be just a poured in place concrete wall. It should be either a finished in brick, stone, or split face block, because you will see it, especially during wintertime. So I mean, that's some of the things that, if it's going to be in our city, if it's going to be in Newton County, let's at least make it soft and not visible, as others have said. Is let's make it where it's not intrusive to the passerbys, either on Highway 11 or on Social Circle Road or I-20. Any thoughts, please?
Yeah, no, we're certainly agreeable to making this park look like a Class A state-of-the-art technology campus. And at the end of the day, this is a huge investment going into this property. We're not looking to cut corners on things like retaining walls and screening and landscaping. We're generally agreeable to a lot of what you said. I think where we just want to make sure that we're looking at everything from a practical perspective, because as far as like buffering buildings from a house that's maybe 800 feet away, we just want to make sure we're spending the dollars we're investing in making it look great. Let's put it into something that people will see. And so our only hesitation would be on those kind of items.
Okay. And Ms. Sellers, I'd like to go back to the screen that you brought up that showed the tax breakdown. And I think that's something that I'm going to call a spade a spade. I think that's something that our local elected officials salivate over, because it is quite a boost in tax revenue. Just for clarification, should this be approved, Newton County would potentially receive $24 million in taxes each year. Social Circle would potentially receive $42 million in tax revenue each year, and Social Circle schools would receive $17 million. What, am I seeing that wrong?
Just flip-flopping the
Oh, sorry.
schools would get the 42
I
million,
really
the
wish
17.
Social Circle would get that, sorry.
Well, the franchise fee is the part
The city welcomes, sure.
That's, if you will, that's, I think, a benefit of the dirt being in the city limits is the access to tap into the franchise fees. If it was in unincorporated Newton, that's not available.
Okay. Okay. I have no other questions about the special use permit. Planning Commission members have any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. Commission members, we have the staff recommendation. Looking at the staff report, Ashley and her team identified the criteria for granting a special use permit. You all have heard me talk way too much. You've heard my thoughts. If this is something that's going to be in the city, I think it needs to be something that's protecting of motorists and adjacent properties. I'll leave it up to you.
Can you approve it with conditions?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
And that's what I was reading after reviewing this site plan. Those are some of the things that I was thinking about, is if this body were to recommend approval, these may be some conditions that you want to include as a recommendation. Again, we can recommend approval with conditions, denial.
I have an extra copy too.
Ashley, what is the current?
Thank you.
What is the current requirement on the building and the offset setback from the road?
So if you're looking along I-20 there, which is the longest property line, it's 50 feet for light industrial.
Is that the same for Highway 11?
Mm-hmm. Any road frontage is going to be 50 feet.
Okay.
Jeopardy music.
Yeah.
Ms. Brown, any?
Can I pass that one down? Ms. Thunder, are you done reading? I think. Okay. I just want to get them.
It would have to be, it would have to be, have those stipulations, because the thing about it is, we can say anything. So it needs to put in there that we are asking for it to have. I read all of them.
Right. If you guys agree with the chairman's conditions that he's put forward, you can offer a motion to recommend approval with the conditions listed by the chairman. That's an option. If you want to discuss some of those conditions, that's definitely an option as well. I pulled some numbers based off of what our code allows. So basically, when you're conditioning a property, you're conditioning it further than the code, what the code would require. So for example, one of the proposed conditions by the chair is 35 spaces for parking per building. In total for this whole development, that would be about 315 parking spaces. The code would allow a maximum of 513. So the developer could go in and do anything under 513, but that would be the absolute maximum amount of parking that the code would require. Again, and if you did the condition of 35 spaces, the absolute maximum would be 315.
I know we have,
John.
I know we have a standard in the code, as far as the facade of the buildings. Does that fall on these as well with the same, or?
So the code for industrial architectural standards is a little bit more lenient than a lot of our residential and commercial standards. Mainly, if you can't see it from the road, you kind of have a little bit more leeway. So the retaining wall, that would be more restrictive than the code. So if you like that condition, that would be one. I don't think there was any other.
There's no architecture.
Yeah, I don't think there was any specific suggestions about the architectural. It just says, I think concrete tilt wall buildings are just not the prettiest.
The retaining wall, is that 220 feet tall?
2,800 linear feet.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't give the height.
Oh.
And what about the water? How would you?
And I would certainly encourage the commission that's a big topic. And I think it deserves credit to find out about how the cooling is going to be used. I mean, potential 2.6 million gallons of water a day, that's more than what the city of Social Circle uses, all its residents. And as the applicant said, maybe 10 days a year at that. Well, that maybe could go up to 30 days or longer, depending on the demand of the electricity and the demand on the servers in those data buildings. The data being driven is all being driven by AI generation and online shopping. Everybody has a social media account. Where's that stored? So as the demand is going to determine the amount of cooling that's needed per building. So, Mr. Gaither, I have grave concerns over the cooling and would encourage some placement or condition on that it's not used with potable water. The cooling has to be an alternative system. But again, the applicant wasn't able to explain, which method that they prefer to use water, because that's obviously the more cost effective in terms of construction. But there's alternatives out there that can be used. I'm just not well versed enough in what alternatives are available and at what efficiency they are. John, do you have any background?
Well, on some of it I do, but on the gray water systems, they can use that for a pretty high percentage, but they still have to pull water from somewhere, just based on evaporation and just physics. They're gonna lose water in some form or fashion.
Microphone, please.
There is a big savings using the gray water and reclamation from, I noticed on the drawing, they've got, I think, 3 retention ponds. And those do help quite a bit with water savings, but they will still have to use some sort of municipal water system to feed those systems, because they won't self-contain. And there is gas and electricity, and there's other ways to cool them. I'm not versed on all the efficiencies of the other ones, but more so about the water than anything.
Thank you.
I was just thinking, when you asked, did you have a letter from Georgia Power? It kind of made me think, wouldn't you bring something that's stating that you have asked and what you're gonna be using? Because we're talking about a business, we're not talking about heating or our lights at our house. So when it comes to the people, you really, really gotta think about that. Yes, I have it, here it is right here. Yes, I have it right here. You know we wanna see it. And I'm only saying that because we know how things go up. We start out little, and the next thing you know, you're paying out the wazoo. So we don't want that to happen here. We wanna be on, you to know that we need some, believe what you're saying. We're not saying you're not telling the truth, but you don't have proof. Yes, ma'am. That's it.
Okay, so being in deliberation, commission members, we do have the option to table it to another time to allow the applicant to bring back additional information if that's the desires of the commission.
I recommend tabling it until we get
All right,
more information.
so,
What more information are you looking for? And we also have to table to a date certain. That way the applicant knows.
Till after the letter is, whatever the judge say, until,
well, I mean,
whatever.
Mr. Gaither, I would recommend to the next meeting, which would be
Okay,
the May 27th.
okay.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, there's nothing before a judge, so
Yeah, nothing yet.
Okay. More information on how much water, other water sources, other cooling sources.
All right, so we have a motion on the table, and Mr. Gaither, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but until the May 27th Planning Commission meeting, for the purposes of the applicant bringing back information on their cooling sources, the amount of water to be used. Is there anything else?
As far as the buffering for the buildings,
Information about buffering from buildings? Okay, all right. That was your motion, and you said that there's a second. Okay, so there is a motion and a second. Mr. Gaither would, I would like to discuss this a little bit further, and maybe that there's a further discussion on the motion. I agree with you. I think you're on the right track. But to also include information about the relocation of the buildings on the southwest corner, and looking at the distance from I-20, that would be the buffer you talked about. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure I don't want to overstep. Are there any other discussion on the motion? Okay. I would. No, sir, we're in deliberation and making a motion. And then I would add that if you're agreeable to this, that we get a copy of the commitment letter from Georgia Power and the water and sewer provider. So for Mr. Attorney, I'm going to turn to you. Parliamentary procedure, should the motion die and the vote die and then brought back up, or can the motion be amended?
the motion can be amended if Mr. Gaither wishes to do that.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, so there's an amended motion Do I need to state that for the record for your sake?
No, I got it.
Okay. Do you agree with that amended motion? Okay. So there's a motion and a second to table for all those other reasons stated. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor of that motion, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed to the motion? Okay, we have one opposition. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the tough part. Our recommendation was to table this item until further information can be provided by the applicant. The applicant can bring that back to us next month at the stated public hearing date and time. The rezoning will be heard by the mayor and council at a public hearing very similar to this. The mayor and council will make a decision on that rezoning request. So again, as a public hearing, you're all welcome to attend and either voice your support or opposition. Now the hard part is we've got an agenda to finish going through. You're welcome to get up and leave, or if you want to stay and watch the rest of what we got, you're welcome to. Okay. We've got, what happened? The,
No, I have extras.
You got an extra?
Yeah.
all right.
I hate that.
All right.
Got like 5 extras.
So, moving down the agenda, we have new business. Ashley, would you like to?
I do not have any new business to discuss. We do have a couple cases besides the one that just got tabled for the May 27th meeting. So we do not have to hold a public hearing for the tabled meeting because the public hearing was already held. So that will just go under unfinished business on our next agenda, and then we'll have a couple other public hearings, okay?
Sounds good. All right. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Last month, I think it was, you mentioned something on the future land use
Yep.
map.
That was 2 months ago.
The comprehensive plan update.
It does.
Yes. So we are currently, we presented some of the updates to the mayor and council at their retreat back in March. So we're waiting on the regional commission to kind of take those updates and add them to the plan. If you guys would like to put that under new business, we can. At the May 27th meeting, we do plan on having a public hearing for that at the mayor and council, the May mayor and council meeting as well. So that's where we'll kind of get into the meat and potatoes of what that plan looks like, and we will post that on the website 2 weeks prior to the public hearing, so people have the opportunity to see exactly what it is that we're changing. It's a very minor update, so we don't have to go through like the whole kit and caboodle of a comprehensive plan update. It's mainly just adjusting the comp plan to reflect the recent code update that we did over the last 2 years.
And it'll include this piece.
Yeah, it will include this piece.
I was about to say, are we gonna get all this cleared up?
Yeah, currently on the drafted plan, this piece is Gateway Interchange area, which again makes the most sense future land use wise for this area in the city.
Okay. Make a motion to turn the air conditioning off.
You're not kidding. I've been up here freezing.
Yeah.
All right.
Speak for yourselves.
All right. No other business. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Motion, we adjourn.